Welcome back.
You want to do the welcome back?
No, you got it. You got it.
You know, I'm not cutting this. You already started it, so you can start it.
Welcome back to episode 4 of the DIlks Musk. I sound so much cooler when I say it rather than you.
I mean, that's really debatable.
I have a little more flow.
That's a little bit debatable. You sounded like Will Ferrell doing Harry Carey. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
That's what you sounded like.
A little bit.
So I want to cover the 80s tonight since I love the 80s.
That is perfect.
I have 2 of my favorite 80s movies tattooed on my arm.
Before you go down that road,
okay,
I would like to discuss something that will really frustrate our mother.
What's that?
The Saint DIlks. She denied having the in thing of the 80s big hair to the point where she Googled and went through a full argument with me about how she didn't have big hair and all this other stuff. I didn't realize it was that big of a deal to have big hair, but apparently wasn't in the 80s.
I thought she did have it.
Did he?
I thought that she had it.
Mom was so mad at me to the point where she wanted to call in to this podcast because she did not want me bringing it up.
So instead you just bring it up right off the bat.
Right off the bat, you know.
80s hair was the thing. Men's hair in the 80s, women's hair in the 80s. Everyone was trying to be Madonna.
Did Madonna have big hair?
Probably at one point. She's Madonna. She was in all the trends.
Madonna's still popular. She probably trended the trend, if you will.
She could have. 80s big hair. I wasn't around for it, obviously, but I feel like it was in the mid to late 80s when it was popular.
Yeah.
So maybe.
Mom said because you were born in the mid 80s, that's why she didn't have big hair.
Because she was already a mom and not trying to impress anybody?
Yeah, that's what she says. That's what she claims.
I'd love to find pictures of younger to see.
Dad has brought up pictures and said this is big hair, and Mom said it's curly.
Well, yeah, curly hair is big hair.
That's what I said. I wish we could phone a friend right now.
Come on, Mom. Big hair is curly hair. Curly hair is big hair.
Mom, she didn't want to be part of the trend.
She's part of it. She could have started it.
She could have started the big hair movement.
Yeah, because I don't remember seeing big hair on the mid 80s movies. Big hair was around more. Yeah, it was definitely in late 80s.
Yeah, Mom said it was 87 to 88 or 89.
So maybe she didn't. Maybe she skipped it because she had me and then she had you.
Maybe.
And she was too pregnant to worry about her hair being big. She wasn't trying to fall into a trend because she wasn't trying to impress anybody.
Maybe. Who knows? Maybe.
We'll have to find some pics.
Oh, there's pics. There are pics. There's a picture of Mom with big hair for Mom and Dad's anniversary. For their 1-year anniversary, Mom be rocking big hair.
What was her excuse for that?
She said it was curly.
Well, yeah, aren't they the same thing? I thought they're interchangeable.
Well, apparently big hair, the taller you got the hair, was the more popular way.
No, we're not calling her Marge Simpson. We're not trying to say she's like Marge with big hair.
We're saying she had puffed out hair.
The poofiness.
Since she went into the shampoo, the special shampoo, I said, Mom, I don't need this many details. Just admit that you have big hair.
You know who has details? Liars.
I just thought I'd bring that up.
The more intricate the lie, the more details you have to give to throw the person off the scent.
Maybe. You might be right there.
Just a little something I learned in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Well, I have 3 of my favorite 80s movies.
Go.
Number 1, it could be my all-time favorite movie, Stand By Me. It's one of probably my top 3 all-time favorite movies.
I would say top 10 for the 80s.
Number 2, Outsiders. It's the only book I've ever read in my entire life, so it's got to be right there.
That's in my top 5.
Number 3, Goonies. Those are my top 3.
It's not a bad
Take it or
list.
leave it.
It's not a bad list. Mine's Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, that's a good one.
I accused Dad.
Is Fast Times at Ridgemont High 70s?
1983. Actually,
70s.
I'm 100% sure because I accused Dad of stealing the line from that movie. In that movie, in the beginning, when the girl's working at the pizza place.
Yeah, I know the movie.
She's waiting on that guy, and he goes, "Can I get a burger, fries, and a date on Friday night?"
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was Dad's line.
And I said, "Dad, isn't that what you said to Mom?"
But that was in 82.
Dad, no. Then the movie came out in 82. Then the movie came out in 82 because Dad and Mom met 3 months before that movie came out.
So he
just made it.
Because technically, they stole the line from him.
That's what he says.
So they copyrighted it.
Yeah, and because I said to Dad, you're on thin ice because I know the pickup line that you gave to Mom, and I hear this guy using that same pickup line. It's like, did you take it from the movie? We quote movies. And he was like, no, I swear I didn't. So I Googled it, and Mom and Dad met in June of 82.
And that movie came out in September?
August.
Yeah.
So close.
So they stole from him.
Yep. Breakfast Club right here. I got John Bender at the end of Breakfast Club holding
He's not the coolest character.
What? It's an iconic scene with him with his fist in the air.
Yeah, I know the scene, but he's not the coolest character in that show.
Another great 80s movie?
What? Oh.
Christmas Story.
Yeah, but I'm not diving down that road.
Well, because then you can be like Christmas Vacations in the 80s also. Christmas Vacation came out in 1988.
Yeah.
Who's we?
No, I think last time when I brought up 90s movies and I said Christmas Vacation, I think you looked it up.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, yeah, that definitely came out in 88.
I have to bring up, due to Courtney, her favorite all-time 80s movie, Pretty Woman.
Is that 80s or 90s?
Uh-oh.
I'm pretty sure that came out like in 1992. I don't know why 1992 is ringing in my head, but I'm pretty sure it was like 91, 92.
It was 90. Early 90s.
I was so close.
So we'll call it as it is. That's our favorite all-time movie.
It was recorded in the 80s.
So that's our favorite all-time movie ever.
Okay. I'll give her the cusp.
Because it was right there.
Yeah, it was considered an 80s movie, and guess what kind of hair she had? Big hair.
Big hair.
But it was curly.
It was
big curly hair.
Big girly hair. That's all it was.
Curly, not girly. I mean, it was girly too.
Yeah, and so Courtney made me watch. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Stepmom with Susan Sarandon.
No.
And Julia Roberts.
No.
So, and Harrison Ford.
You can keep naming the people in it, but I'm still going to say.
Ford. No, not Harrison Ford. Ed O'Neill.
Still.
Not Ed O'Neill.
Oh my God.
Hold on.
The Hulk?
No, JD.
Hulk Hogan?
Hold on.
Michael Keaton?
Who's the bad guy in The Rock? The movie The Rock.
Oh, I forget his name. He's in everything. He was in Armageddon.
No.
What do you mean no? He was one of the guys in Armageddon. I always forget his name.
Hold on. Yes, he was. Hold on.
I'm just blanking on his name. He was on the show Mom.
Ed Harris.
Ed Harris, son of a bitch.
Ed Harris. So, Susan Sarandon and Ed Harris got a divorce. And Ed Harris started dating Julie Roberts. Okay? Now, this is a complete chick flick. But I dove in because Courtney was watching it, and sometimes you just get trapped in a movie.
Yep.
And Susan Sarandon was hiding. She had terminal cancer, and the whole time, secretly, Susan Sarandon is trying to get Julie Roberts to become the mother of her kids that she wants her to be. So it's like this huge thing. At the end, Susan Sarandon loves. It's a whole thing.
It sounds like a threesome opportunity.
For Ed Harris?
Hey.
Ed Harris did just destroy the game in the 80s, I believe.
90s. I would say more 90s I saw him.
Speaking of Armageddon.
Mid 90s.
One of my favorite bands of the 80s is Aerosmith.
Aerosmith. And
it's one of my favorites.
So is that why Armageddon and you thought of Aerosmith?
You see it? See it all equal now?
Don't want to close my eyes. I don't want to miss the thing.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I don't want to close my eyes.
Would you say the greatest band in the 80s was Queen?
No. I mean, you said Queen.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, whatchamacallit, what we were just doing.
Aerosmith?
Yeah, Aerosmith. They weren't the greatest band.
Queen is #1 best band of the 80s.
Yeah, band, yeah.
By far.
Motley Crue had a bunch of big shows, too.
But not Queen style.
Not Queen. Well, one of my favorite movies came out in the late 90s, but it takes place... Oh, never mind. It takes place in 71. So, fun fact. Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah.
Like I said, it came out in 82, 83. That movie was written by Cameron Crowe, who later on did Jerry Maguire and Say Anything. Say Anything has that famous scene with the boombox over his head.
Yeah, John Cusack.
Yep, that's a great 80s movie. It's 1988.
Wasn't he in another one? Oh my god. This is completely absurd. What was the movie where the girl's like a mechanic and the guy's like super nerdy and he finally gets a date or like goes to a dance with the popular girl, but then he goes back to the girl who's a mechanic?
I don't think I know that one. But anyway, Fast Times at Ridgemont High is written by Cameron Crowe. You've seen Almost Famous, correct?
Yes, with Kate Hudson.
Yeah, and that's like her first big movie. Well, Cameron Crowe wrote and directed that movie based on his life as a 17-year-old following the Allman Brothers on tour. And because remember in the movie in Almost Famous, he looked really young.
Yeah.
He was like too young and he was graduating early and all that. Well, that all really happened to Cameron Crowe. So once he got done, writing for music, he wanted to write stories and write screenplays. So he went to the principal of his old school and he said, "Hey, can I just like sit in classes and like see what the kids are talking about these days, seeing what's going on? I want to write a movie about the high school experience in the 80s." And since he was a good student, they let him be like undercover student so he could write Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He couldn't direct it because he was a first-time writer, so it's really hard. Only Quentin Tarantino was able to direct and write his first movie the way he did with Reservoir Dogs. So because after he did that, he ended up marrying the girl from Heart. The lead singer from Heart is who Cameron Crowe ended up marrying for a while.
Have
But
you watched? Have you watched that not documentary, that docu movie called The Dirt
I
on
love
Netflix?
I love that. I love the
That was
Dirt.
pretty good.
Yeah, Motley. That's what I mean. Motley Crue was huge.
Didn't Machine Gun Kelly
Play him.
play? Yeah,
Yeah, Machine Gun Kelly was great in it too.
yeah, he was
Like he played that role perfectly. Plus, he's all covered in tattoos anyway. But yeah, The Dirt on Netflix. If you haven't watched The Dirt on Netflix, do yourself a favor. Speaking of the '80s music, Motley Crue, and it is all about, and it's a true story. They were involved in the making of the movie. The movie is actually based on a book. Um, what's his name? I'm blanking on his name. The guitarist that was a heroin addict. I think his name was like Vince something.
I forget.
But you know I'm talking about, the long hair who ended up
Yeah,
becoming
yeah,
a heroin addict. He
yeah.
wrote the book called The Dirt. Nikki Sixx. His name is Nikki Sixx. It was gonna bother me. Nikki Sixx wrote the book based on
Six.
Six. It's Six.
It's got to be your pulse.
Now you're making me.
No, it's Sticks, Judy. Styxx.
It's Six. Sixx. I thought I was right. You're gonna try to make me feel like I'm crazy. It's like, what do you mean? I know who it is. 80s music was a totally different scene too, because if you think about it, like the 70s started out with classic rock. Well, we call it classic rock now, but in the beginning
Yeah.
of the 70s, you're coming out of Woodstock, and the biggest music around is, like the Beatles just went under and just retired. But then you got Paul McCartney, John Lennon, all of them starting their own
Van
bands.
Morrison.
George Harrison. Van Morrison. He wasn't in the Beatles.
I thought you were just doing like single.
Well, no, I mean, so it was like bands.
It's got to be your.
They were more like rock and roll bands that came out of the early 70s, but then it turned to the Bee Gees and disco.
Yeah, remember when we went to Paul McCartney's concert? And he's like this. Yeah, George came over, then John came over, and we started like collaborating and he was just talking like they were normal people.
I mean, they are.
Yeah.
In their own right.
Yeah.
But 80s music, it like bridged the gap between the 70s and getting out of disco. Disco lasted just as long as curly big hair like mom had.
I love how this just keeps on recurring.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People, even in Motley Crue, or Queen, what did Brian May have? Big blonde,
old hair.
big old
blonde
curly hair.
I know.
Did you already kill one?
What?
Did I hear a 12-pack next to you?
I'm sorry, what?
Did I hear lift up to your right? Is that a freshie? You got to hold up a 30-pack?
No.
You're like an 18-pack? Yeah, I thought so. I thought I heard you just shuffling through a box.
You heard that?
I hear everything.
These microphones are really good.
Ask Dominic. I hear everything.
Anyway, I did look up some cool facts.
Go ahead.
Guess what was created in the 80s?
Nintendo.
Cool Ranch Doritos went down a different road. They had the nacho flavor.
Sammy, Swami, Swimmy, man, that was way off.
So, yeah. And I would like to discuss, who do you think the king of pop was?
Michael Jackson.
No, I disagree.
How?
Prince.
Prince was playing more rock and roll, not pop.
Listen, Michael Jackson probably is the king of pop, but you had to put Prince up there.
Prince is one of the best guitarists and best entertainers of all time.
Purple Rain was like the #1 song of the 80s. Did you know that?
Yeah, that also was, I think, 88.
Single. Yeah, the single. #1 single of the 80s was Purple Rain.
Really?
Yes. I Googled it prior to this, friend.
All right. I'll believe your Google search.
I Googled it. I wasn't going to hit that fact on here. It said 90% accurate that it's the number. So you can't just say it's like a favorite type thing.
Well, yeah, because you have different #1s in different genres.
But they said 90% accurate. It's Prince Purple Rain.
I wonder why it was the biggest. Because you got hit. You got to remember some of like Queen's best songs came out of the early 80s.
Don't Stop Me Now. It's my favorite all-time song.
Are you having such a good time? Are you having a ball?
I'm gonna see how many I can drink in this hour-long session.
That
Think
ought
I
to
can
be
get
good.
6? You think I can get 6 in?
I'm not challenging you. I'm sober. I can't like drink through you.
Oh.
That's not how that works, sir.
Think I can drink 6 beers in an hour?
I've seen you do it.
No, it's 22 minutes. I might get like 3 or 4.
Yeah. So, what about 80s TV shows? Because one of my favorites was The Wonder Years.
Cheers.
Cheers. You know what? The Wonder Years is fucked up because it takes place. It came out like in the late 80s, but it takes place in the 60s and 70s. And I
like Wonder Years a lot. The dad was awesome in The Wonder Years.
I started watching it again lately, and Kevin, the main kid, Kevin,
yeah,
kind of a dick. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah.
Kind of a dick. He wasn't that great of a friend to Paul.
And Paul's such a nice kid.
Never listened to his dad.
Hated on Wendy all the time.
Yeah, break up, go back together, break up. It's a big mess.
It's all him.
I blame Kevin completely. You know what's crazy is that he was in a TV show about growing up at the same time almost as his brother was in a TV show about growing up.
Good old
Boy Meets World. BMW.
I started watching it.
Oh, you did?
Jessica made me.
The first season's okay, but
it gets boring.
It gets really good by season 3.
You know who's my favorite character?
Who?
Feeny.
He's so many people's favorite character.
He's got so many like powerful quotes going on.
Well, that's the Feeny for you. There's even eventually there's a Feeny call where whenever Eric calls for Feeny at the fence, he always does it like Feeny.
I've never seen that before.
That's because it's later in the show. They do like it's a whole thing. Every time he comes out to talk to Feeny, he yells something different each time.
What do you think the #1 thing, the biggest thing that happened in the culture in the 80s? #1. Let me tell you mine.
What is it?
U.S. winning.
So you're picking the thing from 1980.
Jenny, top it. Top that.
The wall falling.
A bunch of college kids go in the Olympics. They beat the best of the best.
Yeah.
During that time.
Yeah. The movie takes place like 2 months into the 80s. No one even had big hair yet, Mom.
Yeah, Mom. Big old hair.
She's gonna hate this. She's gonna hate this. We're both gonna get phone calls. You're gonna get yelled at.
Dad's gonna crack up. Big old hair.
They didn't have that in the early 80s. That was more of a mid to late 80s thing.
She started the trend. I think she made it trending.
Oh my God, Mom.
But that was the number one thing that happened in the 80s.
Would you consider that pop culture though?
Would you consider it cultural? Cultural.
I would consider that more like, I don't know.
Economic?
No, what's that called when like prideful thing?
Like unity?
Yeah, unifying thing.
Yeah, like
I'm trying to think of anything else was big. Oh, MTV. What do you mean?
MTV
M-
came out in the 90s.
Stop. It came out like in 1982.
No,
Video killed the radio star.
that was not 1982, sir.
Go ahead. Be wrong. 1983 at the latest, but I say between 81 and 83. I'm still kind of sticking with 82. Who was it?
August 1st of
Go ahead,
1980.
say. Go ahead, say. They know it. Yeah.
1981.
You got to admit that was damn close.
Didn't they have the person on the moon?
Yeah. Later became their like when they give out awards.
And like before, like a movie star, if it's produced by MTV, it's the person on the moon. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah,
I know things.
So to me, that's one of the biggest pop culture things to happen in the 80s because it brought more bands into your home. There wasn't any channels on TV. There wasn't a lot of channels on TV in the early 80s. Cable really wasn't a thing yet. So you just had your standard channels.
Who's the longest standing? I did not look it up because I couldn't find it in a matter of 30 seconds. Who's the longest standing MTV host? Is it Carson Daly?
I think it might have been
Carson Daly did it for a while.
Yeah, I know, but what the hell is his name? Kevin Keith.
I know.
Kevin,
how long did Carson Daly do it for?
Kevin or Keith or
Just come up.
I don't know. I can't find it. Not in a matter of quick seconds. But yeah, so I think that for sure MTV gets the biggest props. Matt Lauer? No.
I want to challenge you to a trivia hockey question.
Go ahead.
Who was the dominant team of the 80s?
And New York Islanders.
I will drink to that.
Not even a shredded doubt. They won 19 playoff series in a row, the most ever.
Wow. They just had that as the Google fact.
Was it?
Like the top thing?
Is that what it says? They won 19 in a row?
It says 19 consecutive
playoff series. And if they would have won their 20th, then it would have been another Stanley Cup. They lost to
Wayne Gretzky is the greatest player of all time ever. Won't be sniffed, right?
Agreed. So the first time the Islanders won in like 79, 80, 81, 82, and then in 83 when they were about to do a 5-peat, they lost to the Gretzky and the Oilers, and then Gretzky and the Oilers went on to win 4 in the 80s. So it was the Islanders in the beginning, but it was the Oilers for the rest of the 80s. That my first ever Stanley Cup I was alive for was in June of 87, and it was the Flyers versus the Oilers.
We lost.
We 100% lost. We were playing Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier.
They were pretty good tandem.
They're like David and
like us.
like Drysdale and David,
you know.
like us. In what capacity?
Who would be the Wayne Gretzky between us in hockey?
Who would be the Wayne Gretzky?
Yeah.
Me. I'm a better passer. Wayne Gretzky scored a lot of goals, but he also had the most assists ever.
Do you know that if you double the person who's in second place for assists, you still won't be in Wayne Gretzky's assists?
That's correct. He had something like 1,800. 45 what?
100.
No, it was like 1,800, his assists. He has like 2,700 points total.
Yeah.
900 goals. And I think it's like 872.
He changed
or
the
something
game.
like that. Oh yeah, the nets had to be widened or get smaller. The nets used to be bigger back in the 80s, and the goalies had less padding on, so they weren't covering a lot of net like they do today. Today they can get big.
Who did Wayne Gretzky play today?
Yeah, he'd be like McDavid.
Today.
What?
Is he as fast as McDavid?
He was.
Connor McDavid is fast.
Yeah. But so was Gretzky. That's how he was able to do his wraparounds so quickly. Wayne Gretzky.
Johnny Hockey's fast as shit too.
Yeah, but he's not Wayne Gretzky.
No.
Wayne Gretzky used to his office, what they called Wayne Gretzky's office, was behind the net, because he would get behind the net and hold the puck, look that way, look this way, and then end up just doing a wraparound.
They didn't have those two red lines right behind the net like they do now, right? Where you can't
now
stay
they
in
do.
there for. Yeah. I'm saying now they do.
No, they didn't back then.
Yeah, you can't stay in there for more than like how long?
No, I think that the goalies are the only ones that can't stay in there.
Oh, okay, yeah, like go back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, like the goalie has to go around and get rid of the puck and not like sit back there. Everything okay over there?
Sounds upset about something.
Might as well. Room.
Yeah.
Who do you think was the best sports team in the 80s? Besides the Islanders. Let's go to a different, like in baseball or football. Football's got to be like the Niners, right?
Yeah, because that was when Joe Montana.
We both said it.
Yankees.
When?
80s. They were dominant.
What are you doing?
Not until the 90s.
Why are you bad?
Because I want to be.
Okay. She wasn't asking you, sir.
I thought she was doing Michael Jackson.
So Courtney's a huge fan of MJ.
Me too. And Michael Jackson came out with Bad in 1980, like 6 or 85.
Annie, you okay, Annie?
Don't.
What's up? Same level?
Is that from Alien Ant Farm?
Yeah. Hold on. I'm looking it up.
It came out, I want to say, in 87.
Oh. Greatest sports team in the 80s. Go.
Sports team in general?
Yes.
Sports in general, Edmonton Oilers.
No.
Wasn't the Phillies.
Boston Celtics.
Oh, that's right. They had a pretty good team. Well, weren't the Lakers great too in the 80s?
So that's what they're saying. The biggest competition of teams was when the Lakers played the Celtics.
Which was often, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Like they played each other almost like every year.
I just read a fact that it's a damn shame, but it's the first time in sports history that the a city has dealt with 3 championship losses in a 100-day span. The Phillies, the Union, now the Eagles.
Yeah, I saw that too.
All in a 100-day span.
Yeah, it's a little rough to be a Philly fan.
Now, can the Sixers bring it right back?
Pitchers and catchers are reporting.
I know. And we are looking good.
We're looking solid. We got Trey Turner.
I don't know who's
It's going to be spring training before you know it too.
Question. You know how they put in Schwartz first off the bat? Is Trey Turner going to hop over Schwartz for first at bat?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you believe that?
Yeah, I think
it's going to go Trey,
and
Schwartz,
then Harper,
and then
I think you could move,
or it might go it might go Trey, Hoskins, Harper, Schwarber, Romuto, Castellanos.
Yep. And then
Marsh.
And then Stott.
I mean, JD, that lineup.
Yeah.
It's filthy.
I think it's in the top 5.
Yeah, it's just a filthy line. These pitchers had to pitch against these top 6 major hitters. First of all, Trey Turner is fast as shit.
Yeah, he has leading the league in stolen bases the last few years.
So I agree. I think they're going to put him at first, even though Schwarber's a pretty cool first at bat hitter.
Yeah, but you need to have ducks on the pond for Schwarber to get RBIs.
And for Harper, Rhys Hoskins he's a cool Phillies, but he needs to be a little more consistent.
I was gonna say he's not consistent. He's one of the more not consistent players. At least if you're gonna.
What was crazy? He went for 9 for 14 against the Braves, and then he went 2 for 18 against the Houston Astros.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem.
Put me up the bat.
Let's talk Christmas movies in the 80s. Is there
Christmas Vacation?
Vacation over Story?
Yeah.
Okay. I can get on board with that.
Christmas Vacation over Story. I like Christmas Story. Courtney would disagree with me. Christmas Story would be over Christmas Vacation for her. But I like the original stuff too.
The first Vacation movie came out in '83,
which was
when they go to Wally.
Yeah, Wally World.
When they go to Wally World. Do you know why it was called National Lampoon's Vacation?
Yeah.
Why? Do you know, for our audience, do you know why?
Well, I know the creator of National Lampoon's did Animal House.
Yep, and that's why it was called National Lampoon's Animal House. So, John Hughes, who directed and wrote all those movies, including Christmas Vacation, he wrote Home Alone, he wrote Breakfast Club, he wrote, you know what I mean? He did all those amazing 80s movies. He did, Weird Science, I believe. He did Breakfast Club, the works. He even did Uncle Buck. That was a John Hughes movie too.
Yeah.
But anyway, John Hughes in the late 70s used to work for National Lampoon's as a writer. And one of his stories he told was my summer vacation of '59. And it was all about...
Was Wally World a real place?
No, I think that was based on Disneyland.
That's boring.
So he wrote this article in National Lampoon's magazine, and then the National Lampoon's magazine said, make this into a movie and we'll put our name on it. So that's why it's National Lampoon's Vacation is because it's based on a National Lampoon's article that he
Did
wrote.
he have to give them proceeds?
They're the ones that funded it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're the ones that like let him make this movie.
Wait, is Christmas Vacation National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation?
Yeah. Yep.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, look it up.
No, it's okay. I believe you. Why
You
did you choose
should.
Chevy Chase to be the father of National Lampoon's?
Because he was the biggest star of the late 70s. Because of he became a household name in 1975 when he worked on SNL.
Do you know it's a great? I don't know what year, but
Maybe I
Chevy
do.
Chase movie, Fletch.
85 or 86.
So it was right
Mid-80s.
around Caddyshack time.
Caddyshack was 78. Caddyshack came out in Caddyshack came out in 80. 1980 Caddyshack
Bill
came out.
Murray's been relevant for like 43 years. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, fun fact. So here we go. Bill Murray and you've seen Caddyshack, right?
Correct.
Bill Murray and Chevy Chase had that famous scene together where they're like, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I grow my own grass."
Yeah.
And then they're like smoking that big fat joint and taking. He goes, "All right, down the hole," when he's like drinking.
Yeah.
That scene is not in the script. Those
That was
two,
all improv?
those two hated each other. They hated each other.
Really?
And they refused to be in any of the scenes together because of their dislike for each other so much.
Even during SNL, they hate each other?
I'm going to get there. And then the studio for the movie said, you can't put this movie out with your two biggest stars not interacting. You have to have a scene with them together. So they drew up this scene where they're doing, a scene about nothing, about him like going night putting. They hated each other because Chevy Chase was only on for one season. He was on for one season of SNL, and he was a household name because he did
so
the news.
funny.
Well, no, because he did the news. So when you were on SNL and you were in a sketch, you were like part of the sketch, not using your real name. But Chevy Chase would always end when he would do the weekend update. He would say, "I'm Chevy Chase and you're not." And that was like the way he would end it. So every Saturday night, he was saying, "I'm Chevy Chase." So he became a household name because of that.
What did Jimmy Fallon do at the end of every one of his things?
Hold on, because he left after 1 year to make movies. Chevy Chase did. And then guess who joined the cast that year? Bill Murray. Bill Murray replaced Chevy Chase. So Chevy Chase comes back like 2 years later to host the show, and he said to Bill Murray, "You're welcome you're welcome." And like
so
you wouldn't have a job if I didn't quit.
Yeah.
And that caused a huge fight behind the scenes because Bill Murray wasn't going to take that shit.
Gotcha.
So that's why they only had one scene together in the entire movies because they didn't like each other.
You think they squashed that now?
I mean, they're both in their 70s. They don't need to squash it. It's not like they're going to come besties and all of a sudden.
What was Jimmy Fallon's thing that he did at the end of every single...
Through a pencil? What?
That's correct.
Oh, yeah.
Who's my favorite character on SNL?
Drunk Uncle?
Correct. Yeah, I'm playing my own drinking game at this point.
You have any other brain busters for me?
No. That was pretty... I'll have to Google this one because I honestly don't know. Who was the first musical guest of SNL?
So they didn't do them right away. The first guest ever was George Carlin. And he was in 0 sketches and he just did stand-up throughout the show. If I'm not mistaken, Simon and Garfunkel were the first musical guests.
Oh my god.
What?
What?
What were you saying? Simon and Garfunkel, I believe, were the first musical guests on the show.
They were, and George Carlin was, yeah.
Trying to stump me with SNL trivia.
What was the exact date of the first episode of SNL?
It would have been September of 75.
October.
October of 75?
Who were the top two in 1975 that were cast members on the
John Belushi and Chevy Chase, without a doubt.
And
Top. You said top two, sir.
They said Dan Aykroyd's above Chevy.
They weren't even on a show together.
Yes, they were.
No, they weren't. Dan Aykroyd didn't join the cast until
in 1975, the debut of NBC, the characters that were on the show: Chevy Chase, John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, Gilda Radner, Garrett Morris, Jane Curtin, and Lorraine Newman.
For some reason, I thought he joined after, but okay. Yeah, I mean, think about one of the biggest 80s movie that right now Dad's been yelling for the last hour. One of the best movies in the 80s.
Blues Brothers.
Blues Brothers.
Love it.
You know what 80s had?
Hey,
80s?
Jaws.
Jaws was 75, sir.
Okay, then I'm glad I didn't miss it then. Blues Brothers.
Blues Brothers was early 80s, and it was amazing. John Candy was in it. John Candy was the 80s. John Candy was in all the great movies in the 80s. Uncle Buck.
I just watched Cool Runnings.
That's 91.
I know, but I just watched it. Uncle Buck. Got
Home Alone was
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. He was in Blues Brothers. He was in that movie, Brewster's Millions.
Yeah.
Remember that movie?
I do.
Who is Richard Pryor?
I know who it is.
And he won the $1 million and he had to spend it.
I'm trying to think of what other great movies he was in. He was in so many great. Oh, one of my favorites.
The Great Outdoors.
The Great Outdoors, but it's like a sleeper movie. It's one of my favorite. Hold on. Oh my God, JD. Summer Rental. Spaceballs.
Spaceballs.
JD.
What?
Stripes.
See what I mean?
Only the Lonely is one of my favorite movies. He's a Chicago cop in that.
Yeah. I love Stripes.
Man, he destroyed it.
That's what I mean. John Candy was, again, everything great in the 80s. But his first big movie, though, that he did was Blues Brothers.
Is that his first movie?
No. Not his first movie, but his first big movie. He was in Brewster's Millions in the late 70s.
I'm fact-checking you right now.
That's fine. Brewster's Millions came out like in 78 or 79, and he was in that. He was the catcher of the semi-pro team that Richard Pryor was the pitcher for.
Brewster's Millions is 85 today.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Richard Pryor looked good for then.
He was in Blues Brothers before that, Stripes before that, National Lampoon's Vacation before that.
Oh, that's right. He was the cop. Remember, he was the security guard.
Yeah, he was in Splash before that.
I can be wrong.
Can you?
I can live with it. Yeah, John Candy wasn't all the great.
Jay, I just adjusted.
You adjusted all right.
It's the floorboards.
Always a
This house was
floorboard.
born. This house was born. This house was built in 1905.
So it's got a couple years on it. But does it look like it's at 100 years old?
No, you were just here.
No, I know. I was just joking.
Oh, you didn't even like come say hi to me. You just helped breathe the whole time. I get it.
You were taking a nap when I arrived.
It was 10:30 in the morning.
And I don't know what the hell you were doing, but I woke you up.
I was just sleeping still.
Yeah. And plus, I didn't come there to see you. I went there to see Bria.
Makes sense. She's cooler than me.
I think so. Plus, I can't hold her on my shoulder like I could.
See, do you hear Bella downstairs?
It's got to be your bull.
Do you hear Bella downstairs barking?
Is that Bella?
Yeah.
What's she barking at?
Because when we eat dinner or eat anything in the living room, we shut off the gate and Bella just barks next to it. Like so. Yeah, John Candy did destroy the game in the
What's
80s.
your favorite John Candy movie?
Uncle Buck. Number one.
Yeah.
I would think.
I think so too. I can't think of something that. I mean, I love The Great Outdoors.
I love The Great Outdoors, but
Summer Rental's good.
Yeah,
Preacher's Million's good.
Only the Lonely. Yeah.
I won't count Blues Brothers as a John Candy movie only because he was only
the cop and he was only like in
2 scenes.
I say Uncle Buck. Uncle Buck's the best movie he made.
What's your favorite like comfort movie from the 80s that you love to watch? Is it Blues Brothers? For me it is.
I can put Blues Brothers on at any time.
Yeah.
I could also put Uncle Buck on at any time.
But do you?
No, I don't. I don't as much as I should.
Yeah. When was the last time you watched Uncle Buck?
A month and a half ago.
Yeah, about that. No, it was like 2 or 3 months ago. It was on one of the streaming services. We found it and we put it on.
You know it's impossible to find? Can't find it. Angels in the Outfield. Can't find it. Can't find it.
You think it would be on Disney Plus?
Not.
You looked?
It's not even on the Flicks, Hulu, Prime, Paramount Plus. Nothing.
That's weird. You would think wasn't it a Disney movie?
I don't think so. I think it was a Paramount Plus. I think it was a what movie?
Universal, MGM.
Hold
on. Orbit.
Who?
Orbit. Orbit. I could have swore it was a Disney movie. Because they made a big deal about it with like the baseball team in Anaheim and Disneyland and all that.
I don't know how to look this thing up, Judy. It's Walt Disney.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But it's not on Disney Plus.
Disney Plus is slacking. Hey, Disney, if you're watching, which I know you are, I know you've been watching. I know you've been watching each week to see when we would talk about you.
We talking.
We're talking now. Put Angels in the Outfield where it belongs.
Right in the outfield. See what I did there?
We went to Disney World, 8 times?
A lot.
8 as a family? Yeah. Once to Disneyland as a family?
That wasn't so fun.
That lasted about an hour.
Disneyland was not as fun as Disney World, I'll just say it. And when people try to compare Disneyland to Disney World, they sound ridiculous.
Oh, there's no comparison. You can fit like 5 Magic Kingdoms. You can fit like 5 Disneylands in the size.
Remember when we went to SeaWorld?
I mean, I know that we went to SeaWorld, but I was hungover, so you might have to jog my memory.
It was in San Diego.
I know. I was hungover because I took the red eye.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You had the conductor's hat on.
And I was up all night drinking.
You had the conductor's hat. Kidding. Remember that hat?
I remember that hat. Yours makes I could pull it off and you couldn't.
You pulled it off all right. Right off your head.
I think it looked good and sophisticated.
When? When you were pulling through the train rails?
You know what, sir?
Dad's cracking up right now.
That's fine. I can live with. Hey, I can't always claim that I have the best fashion sense. I wear all black all the time, basically.
Well, it's you with the conductor hat, mom with the big hair.
You have a middle child syndrome.
That's a real thing, though. That's not like a made-up thing.
It's debatable.
That's weird.
What do you think about? Do you think commercials got big in the 80s?
I feel like more so in the 90s.
Well, you know what we didn't talk about that had major product placement, basically a commercial, was Back to the Future.
You know what else?
The first two Back to the Futures are 80s movies.
Wait, with Mike Myers and what's his name? Was that in the 80s?
No, that was 92.
That had the biggest product placement ever because they deliberately did it.
Hit what?
Remember, they used to be like this: drink Coca-Cola, where it's delicious.
Oh, yeah.
Remember how they like deliberately did like, don't
ads.
go anywhere without this, and like stare into the camera.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. So product placement got huge in the late 80s and early 90s.
And I think they were making fun of it. And what movie am I thinking of, JD?
What are you talking about?
And Mike Myers and what's his name?
Wayne's World?
Wayne's World. I think they were making fun of it in Wayne's World because it was so popular in the 80s.
Well, they had a TV show, so they had to have commercials for their TV show. So that was a way for them to like do commercials for the TV show.
Yeah.
It was basically a podcast.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was basically a podcast before Wayne's World. Without Wayne's World, would podcasting even exist today? You know what I mean? Heard that.
Her butt, sir.
Sir, you know what I heard. But yeah, Wayne's World was early 90s. It's funny because it's part of that long run of movies that came from SNL. You know, like obviously we talked about the vacation, you know what I mean?
Taps.
Oh, Taps is a great movie.
That's an 80s movie.
That was even before The Outsiders.
I know that was Tom Cruise's first movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
still had the crooked teeth in that movie.
It was that, and then The Outsiders, and then Risky Business. And Risky Business put him on the map. Like
The Outsiders put him on the map.
No, he was still a secondary character. I think doing Risky Business.
Weird Science.
Also mid-80s.
I know, but great movie.
Yeah. 16. What am I thinking of?
16 Candles.
16 Candles. That's also a John Hughes vehicle. Movie?
Got it. He did all those like.
You know, John Hughes though ended up writing a bunch of movies with a
what
fake
was the
name.
other movie that was identical to that? The girl from Breakfast Club was in it.
16 Candles?
No, the girl. Another movie just like that type of like thing. The girl from Breakfast Club was in it.
St. Elmo's Fire?
No.
That had Ali Sheedy in it. I'm not sure what you're thinking of.
No.
And why don't you have another sip and jog your memory? There was 16 candles.
Pretty in Pink.
Pretty in Pink. See, I told you another sip would get it going.
That was like that. Was that John Hughes?
It was. John Hughes owned the 80s when it came to making movies.
Chris Columbus owned the 80s.
Chris Columbus directed John Hughes written movies.
But Chris Columbus owned the 80s then.
No.
Chris Columbus and John Hughes owned the 80s.
No. John Hughes first.
Buck.
John Hughes.
Chris Columbus.
John Hughes.
Okay. The person who directed it
was John Hughes.
No, the person who directed was Chris Columbus.
Are you sure?
Yes. Chris Columbus owned the 80s, bro.
What are we talking about again?
Uncle Buck. I hope I'm correct here.
No, I'm right. It's John Hughes was the writer and director. Chris Columbus started directing his movies, like Christmas Vacation.
You can't give credit to someone. Okay, who's more important, a writer or a director?
The director. So.
Who's more important?
The director.
Okay, so
they're the ones taking what they read and interpreting in those words.
So
their version of the book.
The main part. So they're the most important part of the movie. Director.
It depends on the writer, though.
He literally directs everyone where to go.
Yeah, but there's sometimes when people like John Hughes, they come back on the show. They come back on and kind of oversee as a script director and make sure everything's going along. So Chris Columbus directed movies like Home Alone and all that kind of stuff, but John Hughes mostly directed his own stuff. It wasn't until the early 90s when John Hughes stopped writing movies under his name after Home Alone. Or gotcha. Curly Sue or Home Alone. He did Home Alone 2, he wrote that. And then the next movies he wrote were under a fake name because he didn't want to associate the movies he was writing in the 90s with the movies he did in the 80s. So, like, for example, Beethoven was written by somebody named...
Is that in the 80s or early 90s?
Early 90s.
The 90s killed it, too.
That movie was his pen name. What the hell is his pen name? Beethoven. 1992 film. And it was... Let's see... I think Edmond Dantes was his name. Yep, Edmond Dantes. You know why it was Edmond Dantes?
No, why?
Because of the book Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh.
So you've seen the movie?
Yes.
Edmond Dantes is his first name that he had before he changed himself to the Count of Monte Cristo. So
So he went as a writer too.
As a writer, yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, John Hughes. You know what one of the last things he wrote was what's that movie with in the late 2000s with oh my god, Owen Wilson, and like he's like homeless.
You mean Dupree?
No, the other one. Hold on, I got it right here. It was the last ones he ever did. Drillbit Taylor.
Oh yeah, with
Owen Wilson.
I know, but who's the other guy? Matt Dillon.
That you mean Dupree?
I think he's in Drillbit Taylor too.
No, Drillbit Taylor is when he's like homeless, and Drillbit Taylor.
I know. Yeah, I know. I know what movie you're talking about.
Josh Peck was in it, and
Yeah.
the kid from the Goldbergs.
Yeah.
He was like the dork that got beat up a lot and all that kind of
He was
stuff.
also in Bad News Bears, the newer one.
Yeah, the not Bad News Bears 2, but the newer version. He was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
He was also in an episode of Entourage. One of my favorite episodes. He's in it.
Entourage is such a great show.
I gotta watch it again.
Who's your favorite character on Entourage?
Turtle. I love Johnny Drama because of the things that he says. But I think I like Turtle the most because he didn't really have to do much except for just show up and like drive.
Johnny Drama, the scene where he breaks the golf club.
Oh my God! Over in that guy's windshield.
That is, I rewinded back like 5 to 10 times watching that scene.
I love that scene because he calls him Point Break because he has his shirt off.
Yeah, yeah.
And once like he hit the car, Drama's like, "I'm getting out." He goes, "Hey," Turtle's like, Turtle's like, "Hey, do what you gotta do." And then he was like standing up in the sunroof watching him.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Johnny, it's your agent. You booked it, motherfucker." And Drama's like, "Yeah," holding the club up while the cops pulled up.
That's a great scene.
I need to watch Entourage again. It's so hard to watch it because Mikey doesn't like it.
What?
Well, I mean, she's never given it a chance. It's just, I don't think Entourage could be on TV today.
No, it can't. It wouldn't be able to, no.
Neither would The Office, though.
No. Office will be shut down 3 episodes in. We need to have a podcast day of the Office.
I could do that. I've been watching it more lately because it's on Peacock.
Yeah. We've been on for a while now.
That's my rendition of the 80s. I'm probably missing stuff. Mom, sorry about your hair, but...
We understand it was big hair, but we appreciate you, Mom. We love you.
We love you, and you had big hair, and that's okay. We still love you, big hair and all.